Welcome to Ping 24 updates. Subscribe my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. Breaking news tonight, a major military confrontation is erupting in the South China Sea. At 0400 hours, China launched a massive, unprovoked missile attack on the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group. The American fleet was conducting routine operations in international waters near the disputed Mischief Reef. 56 anti-ship ballistic and cruise missiles were launched from mainland China and fortified island positions. The clear goal: sink an American aircraft carrier and cripple U.S. naval power in the region. Alarms blared across the decks. This was no drill. Captain Eva Rostova ordered, "Execute all defensive measures, protect this ship, protect our people." The world watched as the strike group fought for survival. The next few minutes would decide thousands of lives and perhaps the course of the century. The White House convened an emergency session. Global markets and allies from Tokyo to Canberra went on high alert. This is the most serious escalation in the South China Sea to date, a direct challenge to the international order. Beijing is testing the resolve of the United States and its allies. The attack on the USS Gerald R. Ford is not just aggression, it's a challenge to decades of peace. The world holds its breath as the shield meets the sword. The fate of the region hangs in the balance. The president is expected to address the nation soon. The Pentagon is monitoring the situation minute by minute. The stakes could not be higher. The U.S. Navy's response will shape the future of the Indo-Pacific. Tonight, history is being written in fire and steel. The attack began with silence, then a storm of fire. China's DF-21D and DF-26B carrier-killer ballistic missiles, joined by YJ-18 cruise missiles, streaked toward the strike group. Hypersonic missiles plunged from near space. Cruise missiles skimmed the waves, evading radar. The U.S. Navy's defenses faced a calculated multi-axis assault. Alarms shrieked, "Vampire, vampire, vampire!" as sailors raced to battle stations. On radar screens, dozens of hostile contacts converged on the carrier's position. 56 threats, all closing in at incredible speeds. Each missile carried a warhead powerful enough to tear through steel. China's strategy overwhelmed defenses. Ensure at least one hit. The USS Gerald R. Ford is more than a ship. It's a floating city, a symbol of American resolve. The men and women aboard were defending not just hardware, but their shipmates and their nation's principles. The world watched as the first wave of missiles broke the horizon. The professionalism of the U.S. Navy was about to face its ultimate test. The digital display was a terrifying sight. 56 threats, all closing in. The Chinese military had studied U.S. tactics, launching from multiple locations. The goal: divide American firepower, saturate defenses. Even one hit could be a strategic victory for Beijing. The stakes were clear to every sailor. The battle for survival had begun. The outcome would echo far beyond the South China Sea. The world was watching. The American response was swift and calculated. The carrier strike group's layered defense, anchored by the Aegis combat system, sprang into action. Ticonderoga-class cruisers and Arleigh Burke-class destroyers tracked incoming threats with SBY-1 radars. Standard Missile-3 interceptors soared into space, targeting ballistic missiles before they could descend. On CIC screens, successful intercepts erased threats in real time. As cruise missiles closed in, SM-6s and evolved Sea Sparrow missiles launched, creating a web of defensive fire. The sky above the fleet became a chaos of smoke trails and explosions. Most Chinese missiles were destroyed miles from their targets. The Aegis system coordinated defense across the entire group, but the attack was relentless. For every missile destroyed, another appeared on radar. The saturation attack tested the limits of American technology and resolve. One YJ-18 cruise missile slipped through the first two layers, heading straight for the USS Chung Hoon. The destroyer's crew braced for impact. The fight was now up close and personal. The fate of the ship and its crew hung in the balance. The next seconds would decide everything. The shield was being pushed to its limit. The final layer of defense is a last-ditch effort. As the YJ-18 missile screamed toward USS Chung Hoon, the Phalanx CIWS spun to life. The radar-guided Gatling gun unleashed a torrent of fire, shredding the missile just yards from the ship. Debris rained down, but the destroyer was unharmed. Across the strike group, similar scenes played out. The Aegis system linked every ship's radars and weapons into a single, cohesive network. FA-18 Super Hornets joined the fight, intercepting missiles before they reached the fleet. Out of 56 Chinese missiles, 55 were destroyed. The U.S. Navy's technology and training had proven decisive. China's saturation strategy had failed. The shield held, the carrier was safe. But one missile found a seam. It was a reminder, perfect defense is nearly impossible. The last missile's target, the USS Gerald R. Ford itself. The final moments of the attack would test the carrier's own defenses and the resilience of its crew. The world watched as the ultimate weapon closed in. The outcome would define the battle. The carrier's fate was seconds away. The test of resolve was at hand. The lone missile that broke through was a YJ-18 cruise missile. It weaved past defenses, now on final approach to the USS Gerald R. Ford. The carrier's rolling airframe missiles and Sea Sparrows fired, intercepting the threat, but not completely destroying it. The missile's wreckage, burning and out of control, slammed into the hull near the stern. A fire broke out on the fantail. Damage control teams responded instantly, containing the blaze within minutes. The damage was minor. A torn outer hull, scorched flight deck, and a few minor injuries. Critical systems were untouched. The carrier remained fully mission capable. The attack left a scar, but failed to land a disabling blow. The crew's training and professionalism made the difference. The Dragon had punched, but the Eagle barely flinched. The world saw the resilience of the U.S. Navy. The Ford was still in the fight. The message was clear. America's shield had held. The battle was not over. The unprovoked attack was an act of war. The carrier strike group had authority to respond with overwhelming force. Even as fires were extinguished, a counterstrike was underway. Intelligence pinpointed the missile launch sites on the Chinese coast and artificial islands. The USS Montana, a Virginia-class submarine, moved into position and launched 12 Tomahawk cruise missiles. Their targets, command and control bunkers that coordinated the attack. Simultaneously, the USS Gerald R. Ford launched F.A. Super Hornets and F-35C stealth fighters. Armed with HARMs and JDAMs, they targeted mobile missile launchers and radar sites. The carrier's advanced launch system sent aircraft into the sky at a rapid pace. As the strike package approached, Chinese air defenses lit up. One F-35C, callsign Viper, suffered a critical electronic warfare glitch. Flying blind, Viper relied on his wingman and skill to survive. The mission's success depended on quick thinking and resilience. The American response was swift and lethal. The world watched as the U.S. Navy struck back. The stakes had escalated. The Indo-Pacific balance hung by a thread. The next moves would shape the future. Viper, the F-35C pilot, used terrain and stealth to evade enemy radar. His wingman provided electronic cover as they pressed on. Viper manually targeted the enemy radar, firing a HARM missile that silenced it and opened a corridor for the strike. Tomahawk missiles from the USS Montana struck command bunkers with pinpoint accuracy, blinding Chinese regional command. The submarine's attack was a perfect decapitation blow. FA-18s and F-35s followed, destroying mobile missile launchers and radar sites on the mainland and artificial islands. Fortified hangars and runways burned. China's coastal defenses were shattered. The American pilots were precise and disciplined, targeting only military assets. The message, aggression, would be met with devastating consequences. Within an hour, the counterattack was over. U.S. aircraft returned to the carrier. The Montana vanished into the deep. China's most valuable coastal defenses were now smoking ruins. The U.S. response was swift, precise, and overwhelming. Beijing's gamble had failed. The world saw the cost of challenging American resolve. The Indo-Pacific balance had shifted. Beijing was stunned into silence. Their carrier-killer missiles had failed. Their defenses were breached. The surprise attack ended in a humiliating defeat and loss of key assets. China's credibility as a regional power was shattered in hours. The world rallied behind the United States. NATO invoked Article 5. Japan and Australia went on high alert. Even China's partners were shocked by the recklessness. In Washington, the president addressed the nation with resolve, announcing more carrier groups and severe sanctions. The message: the U.S. would defend its interests and the freedom of the seas. For China's leadership, the failed attack was a political catastrophe. Their gamble had backfired, strengthening U.S. alliances and presence in the Pacific. The dice had been rolled and lost. The world was more dangerous, but the balance of power was affirmed. The lesson was clear. American resolve could not be shaken. The The confrontation revealed the resilience and technological edge of the U.S. Navy. The question of whether a carrier group could survive a saturation attack was answered. The Aegis system, layered defenses and skilled crews proved decisive. Technology alone didn't win. The human element was critical. Calm leadership, quick thinking, and courage under fire made the difference. The battle was a warning about the risks of miscalculation. China underestimated American resolve and capability. The attack was seen not as a regional skirmish, but a direct assault on the U.S. The dangers of authoritarian miscalculation were laid bare. The South China Sea battle was a glimpse of 21st century conflict, fought with missiles and computers, decided by training and courage. The USS Gerald R. Ford strike group emerged scarred, but victorious. The shield had held, peace remained fragile. The world was reminded, those who stand guard on the oceans shape the fate of nations.